Hey guys, welcome to Boone County Cryptids, where we chase the country's most chilling cryptid legends, one eerie story at a time. Hey guys, it's Wyatt, your host. How are you guys doing tonight? I just want to thank you for tuning in. Guys, I've got a great guest tonight. I found him on TikTok and I started watching the podcasts he was on. He's got a lot of really cool experiences. He's also an Army veteran, and thank all the veterans for their service, and we really appreciate all that. He's a member of two different research teams. I'll let him talk about that when he comes out. So anyway, welcome to the show, Mr. Jerry Millwood.
Hey, my friend, I appreciate you having me. I appreciate you asking me to be on your podcast.
Oh yeah, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it, and like I said earlier, thank you for your service.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Oh yeah. So Jerry, why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about kind of like your research groups that you're in, if you don't care.
Okay. All right. I'm the first research team that I joined at the time was known as Dirty South Squatching, headquartered here in North Carolina. The group has since changed its name to Squatch Recon or Sasquatch Recon, and launched, I think about 7 weeks ago, maybe 2 months, launched a YouTube channel that's doing really, really well under the name of Sasquatch Recon. And then late last year, I was a guest on Channel 12 TV network, the NCI show, which stands for North Carolina Investigates. And I did the show, and the guys in NCI extended an invitation to me to join. We have, 4 of us are from Western North Carolina, but we also have members all over the country now, mainly because we have that show on streaming TV called the NCI show on Channel 12 TV network. We've got a guy up in Michigan Brian Sawyer, absolutely incredible researcher. He runs Bigfoots of America and Bigfoots of Michigan. And then we have a couple researchers up in Pennsylvania. We've our producer of the show and one of the members of NCI is in Vegas, although I don't think there's many Squatches in Vegas. And we got a couple others that we've recently taken aboard. Natalie Spearman from Florida, Greg Ogles, the filmmaker from Alabama. He's done a couple of really good documentaries.
Yeah, he has.
We focus mainly in NCI. We focus on Western North Carolina or East Tennessee. Sasquatch Recon focuses here in my South Mountains. I live at the foot of the South Mountains mountain range. Okay. And they also spend a lot of time in URA National Forest. If you haven't studied on the cryptid phenomena in URA National Forest, it's a pretty happening place. It's a hot spot for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm 2 groups. I always have. We're doing a festival this weekend in Marion, North Carolina. The Marion, North Carolina Bigfoot Festival, and being in these groups really opened up the doors. But more than anything, brother, it's given me the opportunity to be able to learn a lot, because I was on my own for a while. As a matter of fact, I just didn't talk to people about it.
Right. Yeah, sometimes when you have that experience, it's hard to tell somebody at first. From what I've been told, me, I've always had the the bite for Bigfoot, I guess you'd say it, or I got bit by the bug. That's how you'd say it.
Yes.
I always blurt it out to everybody. I talk about Bigfoot to everybody. People probably think I'm crazy, but I don't care.
Well, you've reached. I finally got to that point, and it feels good, because for 12 years, I talked to my wife about it, because she's been a witness on a number of things. My close family, my kids, my son and daughter, they've been a witness a few times, and then just a few other people. But I was like you, back then, but I was scared for people to make fun of me, because I knew it would make me mad, and I wouldn't react so peacefully. And I started, talking to witnesses in this area because this is a hot spot, one witness at a time, staying under the radar. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then in June of 2020, the Fox network called the little store where I worked at the time, and they said they were coming to town to do a documentary on our Bigfoot, which we call our Bigfoots Nobby or Nobbies.
Nobby, okay.
And the owner of the store was in my inner circle, and she said, they need people to interview. Will you do it? So I called the producer guy in LA, and I talked to him. I said, you're going to have to silhouette me, and you're going to have to disguise my voice, because I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to come public. And so it aired 6 months later, or 7 months later, in January of 2021. And they silhouetted me, but they didn't disguise my voice.
Gotcha.
So I kind of got forced into the public eye, but it turned out, it wasn't so bad. I really haven't had anybody give me a hard time. And it opened the door for me to start collecting people's stories, because people started coming to that little country store from this area, telling me their stories.
That's awesome.
And it turned into a blessing. I was mad at first when they didn't disguise my voice, but then, like 35 or so witnesses later, absolute notebooks full of witness interviews, and I've got my show. It all turned out to be a blessing. And I got to that point where I don't care what anybody thinks. If they don't like it, they can go do your thing, and we'll do our Bigfoot thing, right?
Right. I mean, I say I'll talk to it about, to everybody. I'm kind of, occasionally I'll kind of watch what I say, because I did, whenever I first had my first experience, I tried talking about it at deer camp, and people that I thought would be, receptive to it. I mean, they weren't mean or anything, don't get me wrong, but they were like, well, do you think it was this and think it was that? And I'm like, well, I mean, I've heard all this stuff, but it didn't sound like that. So I don't bring that up out there as much as I used to, except for maybe my close buddy or something. But since I know they don't believe in it, but most of the time I'll talk about cryptids to anybody. But
that's same with me. I'll talk to a total stranger.
Yeah.
Go around. I don't know if you can see my shirt, but I'll wear my shirt in public and go up and tell people, hey, why don't you go subscribed? There you go. Awesome.
Here,
and my wife,
I'll show you this.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
I could wear a different Bigfoot. I could wear a different Bigfoot shirt for 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I didn't mean it. Sorry, I interrupted you there, buddy. Go ahead.
All right. That's all right. I was just going to say, my wife would sometimes probably prefer that I not strike up a Bigfoot conversation with every stranger that I run into some days.
Yeah.
I've learned that by talking to people, you never know. I have talked to people just because we were sitting together near each other at a restaurant or things like that. And a couple of times I wound up getting to hear somebody's cryptid story. And
right.
that is the thing that I love the most. I love being in the woods. I love finding the evidence. I love hearing the vocalizations and seeing the boogers. But I love to hear people's stories. That's my love. That's what I enjoy.
I agree 100%. Man, you were saying it was a blessing. Man, I've met some of the best people I've ever met in my life doing this. I mean, I may not get to see them physically a lot, but just getting to talk to them like this, like me and you are doing right here, man, it's been a blessing. Almost makes me want to cry thinking about it, because I've got a lot of good friends over it.
Absolutely. Same here. I have made some incredible friends, incredible contacts. And, the longer you stay in it, the more contacts you'll make, the more people you'll meet. And that's really blossomed for me over the last 6 months. Yeah. Getting to go to my first conferences and festivals and things and meeting people from around the country. Matter of fact, before we're done tonight, I'm going to see if you might be interested in the near future appearing on the Channel 12 TV network NCI show.
Okay, that'll be fine.
I just invited you in front of the whole world. I hope that was okay.
You're fine, buddy. I like going on shows just because I like to talk to people.
How long have you been interested in Bigfoot?
I'm 38 now. Probably since I was about 10 or 11 years old.
Okay, lifelong.
My grandpa had a sighting when I was like 10 years old. And I can't remember if he was already there at my house when I got off the school bus or if he showed up right after. But yeah, he told me, I seen a Bigfoot walk across the dirt road about 1.5 miles, 2 miles from my house. So that's probably what got it for me. Now, I didn't start getting heavy into it probably until my late teens, early 20s. But I've always kind of been a believer. So.
Oh, in a way, my grandpa had a lot to do. Actually, he was key in me getting interested in this, because when I was a kid in the 70s, and I'm 58 now, he took me to see the movie Legend of Boggy Creek, because after that movie premiered, it just kept running at drive-ins and little theaters all around the country. It was a phenomenon that in the movie world that they really, the entertainment industry hasn't seen anything like this yet. Maybe the Blair Witch project comes close, but went to see Legend of Boggy Creek. It just fascinated me to think, that these creatures could be living out there. And I'm a country boy. Even as a kid, I stayed in the woods with my dad or my grandpa or older cousins and so forth. And then when I was 10 at the Scholastic Book Fair, I went in there and there was a book about Bigfoot. I still have it to this day. If I can lay my hands on it, there it is.
Awesome.
Bigfoot by B. Ann Slate and Alan Berry. To this day, this is one of the best. This isn't a kid's book. And how it got in the library, I don't know. So that cemented my interest. But up until about 12 years ago, though, it was mainly about, it was something I was interested in, but it was about being, it was entertainment for me. I really enjoyed watching movies, documentaries. It wasn't until about 2013 that when I found my first evidence that I started transitioning from that was a subject that entertained me to one I was into for searching, looking for answers. I found when we moved here to this area near the South Mountains of Western North Carolina, I stayed in the woods a lot, and I still do. But I was finding tree breaks. At the time, I really didn't know what that meant. I knew that it was a thing, but I didn't think that we could ever have anything like that around here. And I found a bunch of tree breaks over the course of a year, and I didn't have anybody to talk to. And I'd seen a guy named Lyle Blackburn. I'm sure you've seen him on documentaries.
Oh yeah.
And I sent him an email and said, "Hey, tell me about these tree breaks that I'm finding." And he said, "Well, that's Bigfoot, the Sasquatches." And for whatever reason, we didn't hear a lot of vocalizations until 2015. And they're all here. 99% of these vocalizations that I'll talk about are at night. And I heard a tree knock or wood knock one morning about 5:30. When I woke up, we had the window open. It was warm weather, and it was no mistake what we were listening to. It was a tree knock. It was something wooden hitting a tree. And I wasn't a Bigfoot expert, and I'm still not, but I knew that that's not a sound that you hear in nature outside of a cryptid beating on a tree. And then what happened really, I think, was they clear cut some forest right beside of my land and opened it up. You know, when you clear cut an area, you open it up to deer will flock to that area, turkey. And I think what happened was they clear cut that area, and the clan, I believe there's 2 clans that live near me, generally speaking, and I believe they moved closer because they had such a big new hunting area. We've got all these waterways, creeks, branches, creeks. We've got a major creek, which if it was a little further west in North Carolina, they'd call it a river, Ward's Creek. So I believe they were here. I just believe they kind of moved in closer to this little pocket where I lived.
Right.
When the area, and even after the clear cut area started growing up, and that's been 10 years now, the deer didn't leave. I mean, they're so plentiful here. We're almost overrun with doe. So as long as those deer are here in plentiful numbers, those squatches are going to stay here.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly.
So I was I was very interested. I was mainly looking for any book I could find, watching any documentary I could find. And then one night in August of 2017, I turned on, my wife and I, returning from church late on a Thursday night, turned on the dead end road. There was a big cornfield to the left as the lights swept the cornfield. Standing several feet outside the corn was a squatch, a booger, as we call them, just standing there, and it overwhelmed me. I had like sensory overload for just a second. It registered, but it didn't register. And my wife saw it. I hit the brakes, and she was keeping her eyes on it. And I looked down to put the vehicle in reverse to back up. I wanted to shine the lights into the corn. And by the time I got positioned, it had stepped into the corn, but you could see it. You could see its head above the corn. The corn was fully grown. But that initial sight, the broadness of that creature's shoulders and the size of I was speechless, and I'm not usually speechless. And my wife said, what was that? I said, well, it was what you think it was.
Seeing is believing.
I came back the next day into daylight, because that night I did a little math in my head and thought briefly about going into the corn. Then I came to my senses. And the next day I came back, and it wasn't a horribly dry summer, but the red clay around here, where the corn and soybean fields are, it dries out quick. So there was no hope for footprints. But from an evidence standpoint, the fact that there was no wide swath of trampled corn tells me one thing: that it was an intelligent creature walking on 2 legs, as opposed to a bear. First of all, a bear standing up around here, a black bear on its hind feet, ain't going to be 8 feet tall.
No.
And a bear would have just trampled through and left a big trail in that corn. That's the day, like you said earlier, that the bug bit me, and it bit me hard.
So what, besides excitement, or I guess awe, what was kind of like your first emotion that you felt whenever you seen that?
Man, I was overwhelmed. I felt like right on the brink of shedding some tears or something.
No.
It was, and since then, I've read people's accounts where they had similar emotional reaction. And I wasn't afraid at all, but I'm surprised that I didn't break out crying, because I felt like it, but it wasn't tears of sadness. It was just, I think it's just, by seeing something that that's not supposed to exist.
Right. I've been scared a few times, but probably the scaredest I ever was whenever one threw a rock in the lake.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's the only time I've ever cleared leather while researching.
Right. Well, I just had one of my witnesses walk into the into the studio. Let's just say hello to her real quick. You don't
right.
have to say hello.
Hello. How are you?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Love you. Y'all be careful. Sorry, brother.
You're good.
The second time was in December 2019, and I saw one just down the hill, standing just outside the woods in my pasture. My son was home then, and he managed, as he was just snapping pictures blindly, because we didn't see it at first. By the time we saw it, it was half a second, but he had been snapping pictures just in hopes of getting something. Eye shine is what we were thinking, but he got a pretty good shot. I don't think I'll send it to you. I haven't published it yet, but I'll send it to you for you to look at.
Okay.
And that time, the second time I saw one, it was pure excitement. Far enough away, although I have been fearful on several occasions.
Yeah.
That night I was not. I had a good 50 yards between it and us. And, you know, it left the area. It didn't want anything to do with us.
Yeah. One
of my dogs had alerted me that something was going on out there. And sure enough, so they're close to us, and they come on. We've had, multiple encounters of different types. Everything from, of course, hearing the vocalizations late at night, everything from wood knocks to the howls to the whoops, whistles. I walked down to the bottom of my pasture one night next to the woods, because I have pasture animals and I make sure everybody's accounted for. And if they're not, I have to go looking for them.
Exactly.
And I was trying to find a lost alpaca. And suddenly, from inside the woods, there was a whistling noise. It's hard to describe. It almost sounded like a musical instrument. It wasn't a human whistling. It was just different. And that was creepy. That scared me a little bit. There was a quality to it. Then one night, same scenario. I was spotlighting, looking. In that case, it was a llama on that particular night. And I hit red eye shine in the woods. Now, I had seen the green, but I'd never seen the red, and that frightened me. And then there's been a couple of times when same scenario, looking for animals, and I got yelled at from just inside the woods. This like that, and then it would end with a blow. It exhales, it blows like a buck deer, except it's so much more powerful and so much more deep in frequency. Right. The second time that happened, it was close enough to me that I could feel it. It was like I was near a bass speaker.
So did it kind of like reverberate inside your chest, make your chest kind of flutter?
Yeah, just exactly like if you're standing too close to a speaker and some bass is hitting, and you can feel it. Exact same thing. We've had our house beat on at odd hours of the night, many times. They frequently will come into my barn and take the locking lids off my feed barrels and help themselves.
Get a little snacky snack, huh?
Yep, get them a little snacky snack. Or they'll just take things out of my barn and just carry them. It's like they're being mischievous. I don't know. That's some people that I trust who's been in it longer than me saying you're dealing with juvenile Sasquatches who, just like juvenile kids, like to be mischievous. Just take stuff out of my barn and carry it to different places and drop it. They've never actually taken anything that I never found again. Come up into my backyard and scatter stuff, firewood or poles or lawn furniture. But the most common thing is being out late at night with my dogs to walk them, to check on my animals, and hearing the vocalizations.
You said you hear most of your vocalizations are the whistle kind. Is that
No, that one's rare. The whistling I've only heard once.
okay?
The whoops, that's the most common. The wood knocks are just about as common as hearing the whoops.
Okay.
And then you've got that yelling sound like I was describing a while ago, where you can hear the yell and the blow. It'll either be a blow and then like a yell or or a really powerful grunt, or the other way around. It'll be a yell, a grunt, followed by the blow.
Gotcha.
And the least common is the howls. It starts off very bassy, very deep frequency howl, and then it rises in volume and rises a little bit in pitch. And I've heard the howl go for as long as 10 or 15 seconds on some occasions. And my daughter that just walked into the studio, also known as my spare bedroom, her and her friend and I were over at the base of the South Mountains one night, and we got to hear them, two groups or two individuals howling back and forth at one another.
I bet that was neat.
Yeah, that was really neat. And that night I wasn't planning on doing squatching. I didn't have my recorder or anything, but that's okay. I got to hear it. I got to experience it, and I had two witnesses with me. And interestingly enough, some of the people that's been in it longer than me said those weren't squatches; those were dogmen.
Yeah, I've heard what I thought was possibly a dogman myself, but it sounded like it was a long howl, and then it had some you could tell later as it was going, some coyotes mixed in with it. And I kind of I got it on video a little bit, but you can't. I need to have like somebody that knows what they're doing to pull the sound out of the video and put it through a spectrogram. But I think that night that was in my opinion, that was a dogman. But we were right next to us. We were having Sasquatch activity, but because where I had that dogman encounter that I was telling you about, it's just right over in another cove where we normally have most of our Bigfoot stuff.
Well, as you go along, I have picked up so many tips and hints and learned so much from these guys that I get to hang around with. And one of the guys in Sasquatch Recon, his name is Bob Trent, and he is a master on the technical end. And the first advice that they gave me, actually, before I met Bob, I met Dwight Campbell, and he said, you need to get you a recorder. I said, man, I don't have that kind of money right now, because I had looked at the parabolic dishes that you hold in your hand and aim, $800,000 or whatever. And he said, no, you don't need that. All you need is a Sony stereophonic recorder. He sent me the link on Amazon, and it was $60. And that still yet is my favorite tool.
I didn't have one for a long time, but I looked at the Sonys as well. I bought mine was an Olympus, or I think that's what it's called. It's about 4 inches long.
Right.
You set that down, that thing records everything.
Yeah, they're incredible. I had no idea. And so I got that. And from then on, I've got hundreds of hours where I just would set the thing outside at night or take it, squatching with me, or we camp a lot. We do a lot of camping trips in the woods around the South Mountains. And I didn't mention it, but the South Mountains is a mountain chain in the foothills of Appalachia, North Carolina. It's 100,000 acres. And then all the wilderness around it, you're looking at another 100,000 acres of wilderness. And so it's a squatchy area. We have a history of it here. And I have gotten so many good recordings. And I had no idea they were that inexpensive and that they were that effective.
I've not got to use mine a whole lot, but sounds like you've got some really good stuff on yours, especially if you've been using it for a while. That's awesome.
The thing with me is, I'm outside every night. I live in an area, and because I've got 11 dogs, I'm outside every night of the year, rain or shine. We don't let our dogs run loose around here.
Right.
Because that's a good way for your dog to go missing or be killed.
Yeah.
Long history of that, and that continues in this general area. So they all come in at night, and I don't let any of them run loose anymore.
Yeah.
I had a red bone hound that he belonged to my neighbor, but he stayed here with me most of the time. And he was unaccounted for one day. And I looked for him, but I thought he'll be back. And come to find out he had been injured. He was laying in my barn. I just happened to be walking by the barn. I heard him whimper. And that dog was so tore up. He had his whole backside, his rump area was abraded, and he had tree bark stuck in his skin. So he had been slammed against a tree.
Goodness.
And he had, in my opinion, it was where he was grabbed like this.
Yeah.
He had puncture wounds, but they weren't bite marks. They were too far apart, to be bite marks. I think he was grabbed. They dug in with their fingernails and then slammed him. And I don't know how he got away from them, but he did make it up out of the woods up the hill, but he died later that night. He had massive internal injuries. And then about 7 months ago, no, it was a little longer than that. It was last summer. A person that lives not too far from me had a big, I forget the breed, but it's about 100-pound dog. And the dog went missing. And he was on one of those invisible fences, and he never strayed.
Yeah.
But one morning he was gone. So the man's son went out looking for the dog and found the dog alive. A couple 100 yards away, downhill into the woods, laying in a creek, and its back was broken. The vet said this dog wasn't hit by a car. There's just not, the hallmarks of being hit by cars are not there. He said, I'm puzzled as to what could have broke this dog's back. And then there's plenty of other stories like that. And gosh, 10 years ago is when I decided that, even before I ever saw one, I knew that Sasquatches and dogs don't mix.
Right.
And so
yeah, that seems to be a kind of a universal thing as far as them not liking dogs. And I don't really understand it, but I guess maybe they alert. Maybe it's because they alert to the Sasquatch and kind of give their position away. Or
I think you're right.
Maybe it's something to do with everything that I've heard. Bigfoot and dogman don't like each other. Maybe they kind of take it out on dogs because they're of the same kind of lineage. I guess I don't know. I never have really understood why I don't like dogs so much, but
I think it's an adversarial relationship, just like maybe like dogs and cats, or bears and dogs. Bears don't like dogs.
That could be it too.
And so that's why I'm outside every night. I have all these dogs that are in the house, and I can't walk all 11 at one time. So, I'm outside for an hour and a half at night.
Yeah.
Before I go to bed. And then I also have to check my pasture animals. So I've been blessed in the sense that I live in an area that's a hot spot, but it's not that I'm just some kind of awesome Bigfoot tracker or something. The more times that you go out with the chances of having an encounter, mathematically, you're going to have encounters.
Right.
And so that's what it is. I'm just out so much. And then since I really got into it and started doing some camping and some night hiking, and then going on investigations in various parts of Western North Carolina and East Tennessee, it's just the longer you do it, the more you're out there, the more you increase your chances of having these encounters.
Right.
And I had no idea when we moved into this area. I had family that lived here, but but they lived here years ago. And I just came back because I wanted to get further out into the country. Had no clue. And then I found out there was a history of that in this area. There was a time period between 1978 into about the summer of 1979 where it went nuts, and there was multiple encounters in and around this area. I'm working on a book right now. Part of the book is going to cover that time frame, and I think during that time frame that there was like a juvenile rogue Sasquatch that had broken out away from a clan or been kicked out, came from deeper inside the South Mountains, came closer into civilization, and was comfortable in whatever it was doing. It was comfortable showing itself sometimes, but during that time period, there was these huge tracks found, and the old timers said, these puzzle us. We don't know what they are. They look dog-like, and so I believe that at that time there was Sasquatch activity and there was dogman activity. Plus, to add to the whole thing, there was a big male black panther in the area during that same time period that was making its rounds.
So you had a trifecta of stuff that's not supposed to be there, but it actually, all the evidence was pointing towards it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they used to tell us here in Arkansas we don't have, panthers or mountain lions, whatever you want to call them. But I've literally walked in. Actually, my stepmom has seen them on the property. She either seen it or she got pictures of it on the trail cam. I think she told me she's seen it, but I could be wrong. But I've been walking where I go out to deer camp at. I've been walking, and there was a bear print, and then right behind that bear print was a big cat track. So they're here. The government may not want to tell you that, but they're here.
They're absolutely here. I've seen them twice in broad daylight, and of course I've seen the evidence of them in tracks, in kills. I saw a calf, one of them killed, and I saw a cow, a full-grown cow. One of them attacked. It didn't kill the cow. I believe it was interrupted, but it was hallmark, big cat. And North Carolina wildlife biologists in particular are stubborn about this. It doesn't matter how many eyewitnesses or how many tracks or how many kills that are found. They always blame it on the bears or people's overactive imagination. There's no doubt we have them. You got them out there in Arkansas. They're in the Ozarks above you, and I don't know why I don't know why they can't just say yeah, they're here.
I think they've admitted to it now here in Arkansas, but for the longest time, it took them forever to actually say that we have cats here in Arkansas. But I don't know if we have like a plentiful population or not, but there's several here in the state for sure.
Tennessee has pretty much said, yeah, they exist. State of Virginia. I don't know about South Carolina. State of Virginia said, yeah. In areas where there's a lot of wilderness, either it doesn't have to be mountains either. Because prior, when this whole continent was just Indians and Native Americans, cougars or panthers, or they're known by so many different names. They weren't just in the mountains. I think over time the mountains were the islands of wilderness.
Right.
So it's like out there where there's so much wilderness, here where there's so much wilderness, of course they exist because the ecosystem supports them, and people see them from time to time, and it's really not that big a deal. I don't know why North Carolina wants to be so hard-headed, but I don't care. Because I'm not out to prove anything to the state of North Carolina or the guy down at the store or anybody else. I'm in this above and beyond anything else, satisfying my own curiosities because it just intrigues me that much. You've gotten bit by the bug. You tell me if you agree with this. It's almost like you can't put it into words on what fuels your interest and fascination. Maybe it's the intrigue of the unknown. I've always been kind of a person that liked paranormal ghost stories and liking Bigfoot when I was a kid. So I'm loving life right now and being able to be involved in all of this and getting to meet folks like you and be on podcasts and have my own show. Did you happen to see the very first episode where my little dog disappeared?
I believe I think I watched it on TikTok. Is that where you first put it out?
That's where I first put it out. Scoot the miracle dog. Now he just back in July he passed away from old age.
I'm sorry, buddy.
I appreciate that. He was special. I called him the miracle dog that the Lord sent the Sasquatches to save. But he got missing. Just for the listeners who hadn't seen the episode, my wife accidentally one morning, we've got so many dogs, little Scoot, 8 pounds, got out the door and she didn't realize it. By the time I realized he was gone, it was a couple of hours and he had a head start. Now Scoot was totally blind and mostly deaf. He could hear some. And at least the vet said when we got him, he was 15 years old. So I stayed in the woods all day and it was almost dark. And it's not a good idea to be out in an area that is a hot spot for cryptids. It's not a good idea to be out after dark by yourself. So as much as it hurt my heart and as much as I love my dog, I said, I ain't going to do the dog no good stumbling around here at night. So I went back to the house, got up the next morning, same thing, didn't find him. I had given him up for dead because everything in these woods would have wanted to eat that little fella, even possums and skunks and raccoons. So fast forward, 19 days later, my neighbor comes up on his ATV, says, I saw your dog down at the big creek. I thought in my mind, I didn't say it out loud. I thought, he's mistaken. It's a dog, but it's not my dog. And I got down there and it was my dog. He was standing down in the creek on a sandbar, about 8 feet of bank on each side. And he was just standing there. And when I yelled his name and he lifted his head up and I went down that 8-foot bank like I was back in the Army, right through the water. It was one of the happiest days of my life. I picked that little guy up and loved on him. And my brother, he stunk horribly bad. He smelled just like the smell that we smell so often in these parts, exactly like it, except 1,000 times worse. And the other odd thing was, and I don't think I actually talked about this on the episode, though I've talked about it on some other podcasts, was he didn't have any footprints around it, and not even his own. It was a sandbar that was dry. Now you won't make deep impressions in one of these sandbars, whether they're dry or wet, but you would at least see little tiny imprints. It was like he was just set down there. And here's my theory, and you tell me what you think. My friend, it's his custom every day. If it's not raining, he gets in his ATV and he drives the creek looking for wood ducks and water birds. He enjoys bird watching. And I believe the boogers had him, the squatches had him, and they knew his routine, my friend's routine, and they waited until they heard the ATV coming. And they reached and they put him down there, and that happened to be a good spot because there was an open area in the foliage between the ATV trail and the creek. I believe they set it down, hoping that my friend would see the dog. And we were talking about that relationship that they have with dogs, and more often than not, they'll kill the dog or hurt it. But I believe in this case, this was a little 8-pound guy. He had white eyes because he had cataracts. I think they took pity on the little fella and took care of him. The other thing I didn't mention was he had no teeth. All of his teeth had either fell out or we had to have them pulled. So there's nothing he could have been eating in those woods. We start eliminating the possibilities. There's nothing he could have been eating. Had he not been protected, he would have been preyed upon by fox, bobcat, who knows what. But I believe they took pity on him, took care of him, and who knows how many days they might have tried to set him down there on that spot, hoping my friend would see him as he drove along. And then finally on the 19th day, there he was, and he had gained a little bit of weight. And he was in good health. He just stunk horribly bad. I didn't bathe him that night. My wife said, "Oh, we need to give him a bath." I said, "No. This guy has been traumatized and he hates baths. So let's give him overnight and I'll do it tomorrow."
Right.
But you could smell it throughout the whole house.
Did it? I mean, I agree with you, man. If you said he had no teeth and he was blind, I mean, that would make him not a threat. And you know, that shows something with higher intelligence to not just kill to kill. I mean, if they just killed everything, they would have just killed the dog. So this had some sort of thought process of, they'd probably seen you in the woods before with the dog and seen the dog on your property and knew that was your dog. And then, like you said, got your friend's pattern when they were going by on the side by side. That's another human that human can maybe talk to this other human, and you got your dog back.
It remains the most fascinating story.
That's an awesome story.
I've ever been, not just of stories relating to me, but that's one of the most fascinating stories I've ever heard. And I've told Nancy many times, I said, I can't believe that, that we got to experience that.
Right. So the smell you were talking about, did it smell like just straight up poop or mixed with wet dog, or?
It's a mixture. Here, geographically, the Squatch smell differs a little bit, but for the most part, it's the same.
Gotcha.
You've got maybe some wet dog mixed in with some rotten meat, some poop, kind of a sour pig pen smell. It's all just combines for being a unique smell. And you've probably heard it, but people tell me after I've been in the woods my entire life, "Oh, you're smelling a bear." Bears get blamed for everything.
Right.
No, that's not what we're smelling on the top of this hill 2 or 3 times a month is not a bear. The bears are migratory. They kind of follow the waterways. But that dog smelled like the Squatch smell. Exactly like it. There's no room for error on that. That's what he smelled like.
I'm glad that they brought him back to you. That's awesome. That's an awesome story.
And that's the conclusion most people reach, whether it be other researchers or the general public that sees the story. A few people think that it was feral people. I think there's maybe some feral people on deeper into the South Mountains, but I don't think the feral people would have brought the dog back. I don't know. But the main thing is the smell.
Yeah.
The feral people, the witnesses that I've talked to that have had encounters with feral people, it's a human odor. It's just the extreme case of body odor.
Yeah.
And it doesn't smell like a Squatch. So, Scoot the miracle dog.
Who's Scoot?
That happening is what made me decide to start my TikTok channel. I had been working on that book, and then somebody said, you don't have to wait till to put it out in the book. You can start a TikTok show now. And I had a TikTok account. I said, I don't know anything about it. I don't have equipment. They said, you don't need equipment. You've got a cell phone. You can order a lapel mic. That's what I did. So,
yeah, your content is really good. I watched a lot of it. I really enjoy it.
I appreciate that. In the beginning, in some of the early episodes, those were experiences that me and my wife had, or me and one of my kids or one of my neighbors. But I wasn't late last year. I wasn't mentally ready to tell the world that happened to me. So the story of the lady that about got her head took off with the rock in walking the creek, that wasn't the assumed name. That
I don't think I've watched that one yet. I'm sorry, buddy.
That's okay. That was actually my wife. We were walking the creek together. We heard wood. It was actually an answer to my wood knock that I did just to aggravate my wife. And immediately there was a wood knock on each side of us, once on the east side of the creek, the west side of the creek. And 10 minutes later, a big piece of quartz, a little smaller than a softball, came in from the west, cleared her head by about 6 inches, splashed in the water. And I've been present for a few other rock throwings, but that one was the closest. Now we talk about squatches and intending to do harm. I don't think they intend to do harm. I think rock throwing is the closest they usually come, and I believe if they wanted to hit you, they can, because they would be very skilled at throwing rocks.
They are very skilled. I mean,
like you said, you had the rock thrown that splashed in the water near you. I think that they're just letting you know that they're not particularly happy that you're there.
Right. Yeah, that's what I took it as, is get on out of here.
Get on out of here. I have interviewed so many people now. Fast forwarding, from I started talking to people, just a few back in 2017, 2018, 2019, here or there. If it was somebody that I really knew, an old timer, and I would talk to people, and a few people opened up to me, just a couple, 2 or 3. But then later on, when the people started coming to me at the store where I worked, and I started collecting the stories, and then I started my show, and people started contacting me through TikTok, and exchange information with them and interview them. I don't have a single story of a person being attacked physically by Sasquatch. Goats, dogs, pigs. I got one story of a cat being killed, but I have 0 stories of a person being hurt other than rock throwing. And I've actually never had a person say they've been hit by the rock.
Really? What is your take on the missing 411? Do you think any of those people were abducted by cryptids, or do you think it was just uncanny events that happened?
I'm a huge fan of missing 411. And I think it depends on where you're talking about. I believe deeper into the Smoky Mountains, I believe that they definitely have some isolated populations of feral people up there.
Okay.
And here, as far as Western North Carolina, I think the people who have gone missing, I believe that's what's gotten them. There's a lot of Native American lore, a lot of Indian lore, and I'm Cherokee and Catawba, of Sasquatches snatching kids and women.
I've always heard that.
That is a thing that you'll hear out west in the Pacific Northwest and in Western Canada and Alaska. So around here, not so much. I'm going to say that the disappearances we've had in the Smokies were either the feral people or dogmen. And, there's some cases that are unsolved that was probably just homicidal people who snatched somebody. But I believe that dogmen and feral people are the ones here in my part of the country, and probably in yours as well, that's doing the kidnapping and the people who just disappear without a trace.
Right. That's definitely a high possibility. I haven't really heard a whole lot about feral people around here, but I live in the Ozarks, and then there's probably areas that haven't been touched by people in over 100 years. So, I mean, they could be here too. There's a strong possibility.
My theory on the feral people is, years ago, there were these little communities, little pocket communities, and the remnants of that is still here where I live. Like in this county, you have some towns, but you have all these little tiny communities. We have the community that I live in is called Delight, or Delight, as we say. We have one called Dirty Ankle. We have one called 5 Points. Dozens and dozens. Well, I think way back in the day, people would go and start their own little community, and then just remain isolated and stay more and more isolated. I think people broke off from society at some point to go deeper into the woods, and we're seeing their descendants, or the encounters that people come forward about are seeing the descendants of these folks that just detached from society. Who knows how long ago?
Right.
I had one witness who, in 1978, he had developed this love for camping and hiking, and he preferred to do it solo. And so he took time off from work and was going to take a week and do some camping and hiking between here and a place called Linville Gorge, North Carolina, which is a very deep mountain gorge. And he had a run-in with at least 5 of them. And he saw 3 of them with his eyes, and that they were stringy haired. He could smell them once he got close enough, and they were running away from his camp. They had raided his camp, and they didn't look right. Their clothing was tattered, and one of them, he said, was running, and its right shoulder was so much dipped farther, and it had a real strange gait when it was running. When I say it was a human being. I didn't mean to imply that, but that they were running away, and there had been 2 lookouts on either side of his camp that had alerted the 3 raiding the camp. So I got to studying the map. I think they simply live deep into the wilderness, and when they have the opportunity to raid a camp, that's what they do. And I'm sure they do pretty well, because there are a number of reports of people's camp being raided. Bears get blamed, but bears don't. Bears leave a lot behind. They'll tear into the food right there and eat the food right there. And they don't take sleeping bags, and they don't take jackets, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, when a bear comes. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I had no idea that as to the feral people, really, until I talked to him. He was one of the people that came forward, and he sent me a message, and he said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something strange." And he said he called them wild people. When I talked to him on the phone, interviewed him, and then I met him in person, and I said, "Wow, so there's a possibility." He said, "No, not a possibility. They're out there."
Right. Oh yeah, I have no doubt they're out there. And like I said, they may even be here where I live too.
I would tend to
What's
think.
been your most frightening encounter that you've?
The time when I was most afraid was the first time that I got yelled at. Well, I was talking about earlier, the yell, and it sounded like the blow, because I was all the way down the hill, right next to the woods. I was chasing cats, nonetheless, or chasing one of them. I thought it was my cat. It turned out to not even be my cat. And I got down to the bottom of the hill in the corner of the pasture, and just I'm focused on looking at this cat with my spotlight, and it was 20, 30 yards away at the very most. And I think we got a 6th sense. Maybe it's even the good Lord protecting us. But immediately in my mind, the feeling that I got was that whatever I was dealing with could, intended harm, that if I didn't get out of there.
Yeah.
And I felt a humongous amount of fear. That was a couple of years ago. I was about 56, I suppose. And I reached down and I picked up the 2 of my cats that had followed me downhill, had that doggone spotlight swinging around my neck I tied it around, use a parachute cord, and and I keep it around my neck, and I run up that hill like I was 20 years old again. And adrenaline kicked in like it hadn't since I'd been in the military, because I just felt threatened.
Right.
I felt a little threatened the time that I was whistled at. That didn't sound like a friendly noise to me. And the red eyes, just the fact that I had never seen that before. They'd always been green. Now, they wasn't, I knew the times when I was spotlighting, checking animals and stuff, and I saw a pair of green eyes that were 3 feet off the ground. That's a deer. But when the pair of green eyes are 8 feet off the ground, but I saw the red eyes, that put the fear of the Lord in me, and I got out of the area immediately.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I think some of the first advice that Dwight Campbell, Bob Trent gave me, and then later on my friend George Lunsford, Rob Effler, and Tim Deal that's in NCI, they said, when you have that feeling, never. And I give this advice to everybody listening to this. I give this advice to you, my friend. If you get that feeling of panic, of fear, like you need to get out of there, go.
Right.
Get out.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, because my buddy, the one that I research with, he very rarely gets scared about anything. But one night we had something. We went back into this cove. My hands had started shaking for some reason, and it was like 60 something degrees that night. My hands got cold all of a sudden. But we went back into this cove, and it sounds like the brush just starts, exploding basically. Something standing there shaking the trees like this.
Right.
But when we get the light on it, there's nothing there. The brush isn't even moving, but the sound of the brush is coming from somewhere. So where is it coming from? And there's nothing there. You'd think you'd be able to see an 8 foot tall creature standing there, but it's not there. So anyway, after it stops making the noise, I sat down in the boat. I think I had a little bit of an adrenaline dump at that time. And as soon as I sat down, there's something else come walking up on the other side of the boat, or the bank of the lake over here. And, he got the feeling that we needed to get out of there that night. And that's been about the only time that we've ever, maybe not the only time, but that night he felt we needed to get out of there, and we did. And you could hear whatever it was kind of walking. You could hear it walking behind us as we were trolling out of there. So, yeah, I agree. If you guys get the feeling, get out of there.
Yeah. I was with NCI, and me and George Lunsford was at an undisclosed research area. I'll tell you where it is off camera. But he and I had broke off from the group, and he just looked over at me all of a sudden, and he held his arm up, and he was showing me the hairs on his arm. And he said, I have got a terrible feeling. It's like something's taking my breath. We need to go.
No.
I didn't discuss it with him. I didn't try to talk him out of it. I said, I'm right behind you, brother, because there is a reason for these feelings.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard of the uncanny valley theory about humans, of how we used to fear something that it basically goes on the basis of we have this deep instilled fear buried deep down inside of us of something that used to hunt us in the dark whenever you couldn't see, and it almost looked exactly like us. So that kind of, a lot of people believe that could have been Sasquatch and stuff back in the day, the early versions.
That perfect sense, and it lines up with the evidence. What was the theory called again?
The uncanny valley theory.
Okay. You look at the Indian lore in North America. I started trying to research and find the different Indian names across, the whole country, and I've come up with a list of 72.
There's a bunch of them,
and Cherokee alone has 4 words for a Bigfoot or Bigfoot-like creature, and they've been around since the beginning, I suppose.
No, I think they've been here a long time, a lot longer than most people think.
Absolutely. The thing people will just not accept, and I'm talking the mainstream, although now with the phenomena the way it is, people are a lot more willing and open-minded, and talking about the general public.
Right.
But for the most part, we've been conditioned to think inside of a box and that we can't deviate outside of the box. In other words, if science or the government does not acknowledge the existence of a given thing, well, then we're not allowed to entertain the thought that this given thing could exist. Been conditioned to think that, and so many people that are stuck in the box and refuse to come out. I don't get aggravated with skeptics usually. Occasionally, you've got your smart alecks that
Right.
pop up. But I just tell myself they haven't been where you've been. They haven't seen what you've seen. They haven't had a chance to have something to force them out of the box.
Exactly. I call those people trolls.
Yeah.
And my thing to them, what I say to them is, come out with me. Come out with me and say what you think after we're done.
Exactly. I've done that many a time and told the skeptics, plural, here and there, tell you what I'll do. I will get you a camp set up down in one of the creek bottoms. Firewood, everything. I'll provide the tent. And you stay down there at night. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not standing in the woods by myself. All right, I'll go with you. And I've yet to have anybody take me up on it. Have you had anybody take you up on it?
Not so far. I mean, I haven't had to tell that to very many people, but yeah, that's my message to whoever. And even like, the trolls that'll pop up making bad comments on stuff. It's like, yeah, come on. I'll take you out. Well, Jerry,
I was just going to say, most of I handle it well. I certainly handle it. I'm fine with people asking questions and being doubters and skeptics, because I understand, like I said earlier, they've not been where you and I have been. They ain't seen what we've seen. They've not heard what we heard, but it's the ones that come along. They know everything. They've got it all figured out. And I tend to get a little bit loud and heated with them sometimes. That's what I was going to say.
No, you're perfectly fine. You're more than welcome to say what you want on here. Oh, but yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show tonight, Jerry. Yeah,
appreciate you having me. You want to do it again? You just let me know.
You've got an open invitation, my friend. And yeah, I would love to have you back on for a part 2.
And I enjoy talking with you, and I want to hear a lot more about your encounters and your experiences.
I'd be happy to talk about it. Like I said, I've been on several shows. I like getting to meet new people and get to talk to new people. That's one of the main reasons I started doing shows, is just so I could have the camaraderie, I guess you would say, of getting to meet new people. And like I said, some of the best people I've ever met in this community. So.
Well, we'll try to get you lined up for the NCI show on Channel 12.
Okay, I'd love to, man.
And I don't know how far out they've got the Sasquatch Recon book, but maybe you get you on Sasquatch Recon, because that's what you're doing. You're doing right. You're putting yourself out there. You're meeting people, telling your experiences, and that, my friend, makes all of this worthwhile.
Oh yeah. I'm not looking to get famous or anything, but like I said, the camaraderie and the friendship and the fellowship, that's what it's all about.
Exactly. 100% right.
Jerry, why don't you tell us a little bit about your podcast or your show on YouTube?
Okay. On YouTube, the name of my show is Rebels, Dark Tales of Appalachia. I've collected so many stories from the Appalachian Mountains, not just the South Mountains at first. The show was exclusively about the strange and unexplained things that tend to happen in and around this mountain range. But now I'm going to be branching out. Right now I'm talking about the wilderness area of the coastal North Carolina, coastal South Carolina. And then on TikTok, same stories, same exact encounters. Everything's the same, except on TikTok, I'm on there under J.R.Millwood. So that's my two things. Then I'm on Facebook, Jerry Millwood Jr. And as long as I've got room on my friend list, people that are Bigfooters that send me a friend request, or people that just want to be Bigfooters, I'll hit the button and say confirmed in a heartbeat.
Yeah, well, guys, you heard him talk about all these shows and stuff. Go give him a like, share, and subscribe. I promise you, it's worth it. I've watched some of his stuff, and I've watched him on Sasquatch Recon. Great episode. Go check out Sasquatch Recon as well. It's another great show.
Thank you. I appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much.
NCI, your other research group, they have a TikTok. I'm subscribed to their TikTok. I know.
Robert Effler runs the TikTok for us over on over there. What's it under? NCI Podcast and Research, or NCI Research Podcast?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and then most of what NCI does is on Channel 12. We entered into an agreement with that streaming service. It's like HBO or whatever. You pay a subscription, monthly subscription of I think it's $9.99. But we'll probably, as time goes on, we'll be reaching out in other ways. George Lunsford, who is on the NCI team, is an author. He's written a number of books about the unexplained monsters and cryptids and things around the world. You'll find him on Amazon. You'll find all of his books on Amazon. George Lunsford.
I've heard of him.
His books are really great. I ordered them all, and they're a really good reference book for researchers like us.
Good. I'll definitely have to check those out. Sounds like there'll be a wealth of knowledge.
Absolutely.
Well, Jerry, if you don't mind hanging out backstage for just a minute, I'm going to go ahead and close the show out. And
I'll be waiting for you in the green room, brother.
All right, sounds good, buddy. I'll see you in just a minute.
Okay.
Hey guys, that's another episode of Boone County Cryptids. Jerry, he was a great guest. Go check out his stuff, guys. He's great at what he does. Guys, I've talked about it several times on here. But my friend Daniel Hamilton from the Cryptid Podcast, he set up a GoFundMe for Joshua Smith and his wife Stacy, because Stacy suffers from mold toxicity, and they've had to move 10 or 12 times in the past year or two. And that when they leave, they have to pretty much tear up roots and just leave everything behind. If you guys don't care, go check out that GoFundMe page. I don't remember the exact name of it, but you can look it up on the Cryptid Podcast. He's talked about it several times on there. And check out the Cryptid Podcast with Daniel Hamilton. Great show. Go check out the Nightmare Hunters with DA, Robbie, Steve, and Doc. Check out Squatch and Holler, Woodwalkers. Like I said, guys, there's so many shows to mention. I can't mention them all at one time, but I like all the shows. And thank you to all of our veterans for your service. Thank you for all our first responders, cops, and medics. Thank you to all those people. And guys, if you've had an encounter you would like to talk about it on air, or just to get it off your chest, give me an email there at boonecountycryptids@gmail.com. It's scrolling across the bottom there. And guys, if you've had an encounter, even if you don't think it's significant, every encounter is significant. Every encounter is a piece of the puzzle. And it takes all the pieces to put a puzzle together. So until next time, guys, thank you for watching Boone County Cryptids.